What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode, we break down collectible aspects of Lorcana the First Chapter and base set Pokemon. Let's get into it. All right, let's start breaking down these two iconic, or hopefully future iconic sets when we talk about Lorcana the First Chapter and already iconic set with base set Pokemon, and talk about some similarities and some differences and where we can see Lorcana the First Chapter headed with the blueprint that base set Pokemon has laid out for it. So typically what I do when I'm talking about any type of collectible, whether that's sealed product, sealed pack, individual card, just really anything of value, I always like to use an analogy, or I guess it's an acronym, and I would call that the PIN acronym. So PIN. So P being product, right? So we'll compare, just do like a little bit of an overview of the two products and what they both bring to the table. I stands for IP, so intellectual property, right? Like the name, the brand, the recognition that Pokemon and Lorcana, or in this case Disney, have brought to the forefront. And then the final one is N, and that's nostalgia. So we'll talk about a little bit of that at the end of it, and kind of break down what that means to each individual property, or each individual entity, and what that could mean for Lorcana going forward. So let's first talk about the P, or the product aspect of base set Pokemon and Lorcana the First Chapter. So just like at a high level overview, and then we'll kind of boil it down into two individual iconic cards, do a little bit of a comparison on those two cards, and see where that leaves us. So with base set Pokemon, you have 102 cards in total, ranging from common to uncommon to rare. And in those rares, you have 16 that are going to be holo foil rares that you will get in a box of 36. On the Lorcana side, you have double. You have 204 cards, and you're going to have rarities from common to uncommon to rare to super rare to legendary, and then of course enchanted, which of course we'll talk about that in a little bit. And you're going to get 24 packs within those boxes. So that's kind of like a set breakdown with the two. When we look at what the big chase card is with both of these, again, if you are used to collecting, or you're not new to the space, you're going to know that of course on the Pokemon side it's going to be Charizard, and then on the Lorcana side it's of course going to be Enchanted Elsa. So looking at a couple of different comparisons with those two, and what it might mean going forward from a product perspective, from a rarity perspective, and just from a collectability perspective overall, Charizard really needs no introduction. I mean, this is a card that has been one of the most iconic collectible cards in the TCG orbit for the last 25 plus years, right? This is a card that is super nostalgic to the anime, and then, obviously from someone who's a millennial like myself, all the way to the Gen Zs, like everybody, who lives and breathes Pokemon loves that card. Some of the highlights and some of the positives, and I guess in a weird way, some of the negatives with base set Charizard. The first one would be a super huge positive or negative, which would be the value of the card. Obviously, the card is going for just absolutely stratospheric prices right now, and probably will continue to be going forward. And that's because it is known throughout the TCG landscape as truly the big chase card for all TCG, and especially for Pokemon. Now, I say positive and negative because if you're someone who owns the card, it's a positive, right? I mean, if you own this card, you have something extremely valuable, and you have something that if you ever wanted to sell it, trade it, be able to exchange it for something of value, it is going to be one heck of an exchange for you. And if you're somebody who does not have it and you want to be able to get it, the barrier to entry for that is going to be next to impossible, right? I mean, it's become so expensive that, like, I mean, you're talking about like mortgaging your future in order to be able to get your hands on this card. So very difficult in terms of value, but that's also a huge positive for the card because it has turned into something that's larger than life in the TCG landscape. When we think about the idea of like, how do we go about pulling this card, getting our hands on this card, basically the accessibility to rarity ratio, I guess is what I would say. It's very interesting because the accessibility of the card, getting your hands on the card, especially mint, near mint, very, very difficult to do. However, if you can somehow get your hands on, or you currently have your hands on, a base set booster box, your odds of pulling the Charizard are actually very, very good. And I'm not sitting here recommending that you should open up that box. I mean, if anything, you should probably keep that box sealed for a very long time, probably forever. Have it as like a trophy in your collectible room, or if you ever do go about selling it. I mean, I guess that's your prerogative as well. But you do have something that's extremely iconic, so I probably wouldn't go opening that, or at least I don't advise it. But if you did, just for the sake of doing like quick napkin math, your odds of pulling the Charizard would go as follows. So you have 36 packs in a booster box, and within that booster box, it's been sort of speculated, or at least sort of kind of honed in on at this point, because we do have 25 plus years of data, that your odds of pulling a holo foil would be 1 out of every 3 packs, right? So out of those 1 of 3 packs, there are 16 holo foils. And out of those 16 holo foils, that would mean that you're going to pull 12 of them, right? Because 12 out of 36 packs in a box. So, obviously you can pull double holos, you can pull multiple Blastoise or Venusaurs, or any of the other base set holos. But again, just for sake of trying to hone this into as good of more accurate of math as we possibly can, your odds of pulling a Charizard, if we were to open, let's just say we opened 4 base set boxes, right? That would mean that you're probably going to pull a Charizard 3 out of every 4 boxes. And what that would equate to, if you boiled it down to like an exact, an exact divisible number, it would be 1 out of every 48 packs would get you that Charizard. Again, it's not a guarantee. That's not the exact ratio, but that's about as close to it as we can possibly get, which is really not that bad if you think about it. On the other side, this leads us into a very interesting conversation with a card that we will compare Charizard to, which is Lorcana's Enchanted Rare Elsa, which we've talked about a lot on the channel. So interesting enough, if we start at the accessibility to rarity ratio with Elsa, if we look at, what's it going to take for us to be able to pull Enchanted Elsa? What does that look like if we just start ripping packs and start going for it? Well, let's see. It has been speculated, again, napkin math, that out of every case, or that you might purchase from your LGS, or from whoever that might be, it's speculated that there's going to be 1 enchanted rare in each one of those cases, which would equate to 1 out of every 4 booster boxes, as there are 4 booster boxes in a case. So if we use that number, and again, it could be less, it could be more. Lorcana has only been out since August of 2023, and we're recording this February of 2024. So going forward, we're going to get a lot more math on this and figure out what the what the real numbers are when it comes to pulling this card. But for sake of math now, we'll just go with 1 out of every 4 boxes. 24 packs, 4 boxes, 96 packs. So 1 out of every 96 packs is what it's going to take to pull an enchanted rare. However, you would think, wow, like that's twice as many as the Charizard. Like that's crazy. Like that's a lot harder. It's actually not 1 out of every 96, right? Because in Lorcana first chapter, for those of you who are followers of Lorcana, and for those of you who are new, we'll break it down that there are 12 enchanted rares in the first chapter and in Rise of the Floodborn as well. We'll see if that continues going forward, but for right now, there's 12 within the first chapter, and that's what it's probably always going to be for the first chapter, right? So if we think about it from that context, really it's 1 out of every 96 packs to pull an enchanted, but then you have a 1 in 12 chance that it's the enchanted that you want, that it's the Elsa, right? So it's really 1 out of 96 times 1 out of 12, which equates to 1 out of 1152. Again, it's just an estimation, but as of now, that's kind of where the math stands, that if you're looking to go and rip packs to pull an enchanted Elsa, it's going to be about a 1 in 1152 chance that you pull that card, right? So when we talk about and think about enchanted rares surging in price and Elsa surging in price, and we actually did a video on that. I think that was a week ago. I'll throw the thumbnail down here. Great video. We kind of talk about the theories of why that might be and things like that. Go check that video out if you want to. But what we really are seeing here is people, groups, individuals paying a premium to be able to acquire a card that is known within the space right now as a very, very hard card to get your hands on, and also the card that is going to be probably the market-setting card in the space, the best card from the first set, right? So while individuals might say, man, I can't believe that this card is that expensive, in a vacuum, you would be correct. You would be very, very accurate thinking like, man, this card probably shouldn't be worth this much. But it would be my theory, in my opinion, that individuals are paying the premium for this card, understanding that what is it going to be, what is this card going to be 1, 3, 5, 10 years from now going forward? When this card ages as much as base set Charizard, and they don't print any more first chapter boxes. I mean, what is it going to take to get your hands on that card versus what it would take to get your hands on say, Charizard? So from an accessibility to rarity ratio with Elsa, it's actually very healthy right now. Again, you are slightly overpaying. I think at time of recording, I saw TCG lowest listing, verified lowest listing at maybe $650, something like that. It's bouncing all over in price right now. Again, that might be slightly overpaying. Maybe you're overpaying by $100, $200, $300. But again, as we look at going forward into the future with this game and with this product, I mean, paying a couple $100 over what the actual market probably should be is probably going to be a lot better than years from now paying thousands of dollars over what market value should be, right? That might be the philosophy for collectors going forward with this card. And then, looking at things from the ratio of accessibility and rarity on the Charizard side, it's actually kind of wonky, right? Because from an accessibility and rarity perspective, the rarity of the Charizard, it's actually very easy to find. I mean, if you go on eBay or a secondary source to be able to go and find one of these cards, if you have the backing, the financial ability to go and purchase one of these cards, they're out there for you. You can find them. It's just the accessibility part that's really, really difficult, right? Because it's something that's just so difficult to get your hands on. So it's right there in front of you, but it's really hard to actually grab it, right? Whereas the Elsa is a little bit more of a healthy accessibility to rarity ratio. So again, from a product perspective, take that for what it's worth. But going forward, I'm sure the Elsa will do wonderful things and can't wait to see what it does 1, 3, 5, and 10 years from now. All right, guys, so next let's talk about the I in the PIN acronym, and the I stands for intellectual property, right, or IP. When we think about like what these cards and what these entities mean to individuals, intellectual property, if you're not familiar with that term or that phrase, essentially what it is it's property that's yours, that if you're going to put it on lunchboxes and video games and TV shows and all of that stuff, right? Like you own the rights to that property. Nobody else does, right? So for Lorcana, like that is Disney's IP. They own that. And then, for Pokemon, I believe right now that's Nintendo's IP and the Pokemon Company's IP. Not sure on that. I'm much more on the Lorcana side of things. But really, it's they own the rights to be able to do what they want and market how they wish with those intellectual properties. Now, on the Pokemon side of things, it is an absolute behemoth in the space, right? And they've been a behemoth in the space for the last 25 plus years, 30 years if you talk overseas. I can tell you that myself as a kid, watching the show every Saturday, watching Ash, Misty, Brock, Pikachu, like watching that crew, go through the world collecting badges, catching them all and all that stuff. Like obviously, like I am someone who was, who loved that growing up, and again, you see the next generation who is loving that as well. So from an IP perspective, Pokemon has built something that is just absolutely rock solid. On the Lorcana side, though, however, it's interesting because where most TCGs who try to start up really struggle with this, right? They're trying to struggle to build out a brand and build out something that individuals will gravitate to. Lorcana actually has a huge competitive advantage here because Lorcana is Disney, right? It is Disney that has, as we know, on the special edition box of Rise of the Floodborn, has just celebrated its 100th year of Magic, right? So having that specific IP and the IPs underneath its umbrella, things like the classic Disney's, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, having all of that at their disposal to be able to have a great foundation to be able to use to create cards as a part of the game of Lorcana, that's going to be something that's a really interesting advantage for Disney and for Lorcana going forward. Again, I would preface that with games like Pokemon and others, that have done such a phenomenal job building out such an unbelievable brand going forward. I'm not sitting here suggesting that like a year or two or even 10 years from now, Lorcana will catch Pokemon, right? Because at the same time, Pokemon has done such a phenomenal job touching the minds and hearts of so many individuals around the world. But that's not really the goal, right? That's not the goal for Lorcana, or at least I don't think it should be. What I believe Lorcana should be looking to do is just have a seat at the table. Just be able to say, yes, we're one of the biggest and the best. And when people think Lorcana, they can think Disney, and they can be reminded of movies and shows that they love, and something that makes that resonates with them, right? So from an IP perspective, Disney's going to have so many sub IPs under that umbrella that they're going to be able to work with. That should give them a phenomenal competitive advantage going forward in the TCG space. All right, guys. So the last area, the last letter that we're going to talk about here in the analogy is N in PIN. N stands for nostalgia, and really with nostalgia, I mean, I'll be honest with y'all. Every time I get on these things, I make my notes and I think about what I'm going to say and how I want to articulate it to our community and be able to just get points across with either opinions or stats or whatever it might be. But to tell you the truth, with nostalgia, I really didn't write anything down. I'm very much a blank canvas when it comes to that, because I don't think nostalgia is anything that you can quantify, right? It's not something that you can see or anything that you can reach out and grab. It's something that you feel. It's something that you feel within your heart. It's something that reminds you of a time in your life where realistically you were very happy, or something that just makes you feel good inside and makes you feel like you want more of that feeling, right? And I'm not even going to begin to compare Pokemon to Disney, because both make so many different people feel so many different levels of happiness. I might be talking to someone, you might be sitting on your couch right now saying, I love Pokemon more than anything in the world. And hey, I'm pretty excited about Lorcana. It should be fun. And then there could be another, someone else sitting on their couch saying, I love Disney more than anything in the world. I love Lorcana, and that makes me feel special. So both of those two things, they both knock it out of the park when it comes to nostalgia. But on the Lorcana side of things, that's where I feel like Lorcana has such a fantastic runway going forward because of things like nostalgia and like intellectual property. I mean, these are things that they're going to be able to draw on and use as a foundation. And again, these are not things that are easy to build overnight, right? I mean, this is something that they have the benefit and the luxury of having 100 years of runway to reach out and be able to say, we're gonna use Lion King cards, we're gonna use Beauty and the Beast cards, we're gonna go all the way back to the days of the first Disney princesses with Snow White and Sleeping Beauty and Aurora, use Pinocchio. I mean, these are things that they can draw on that really can make people feel very special as they're adding these things to their collection and as they're playing the game. So from a nostalgia standpoint, obviously, like both are just A++, crazy across the board. But again, from a Lorcana perspective, this is one of those things that with Lorcana having both the nostalgia to draw off of, the intellectual property to draw off of, and the blueprint of what Pokemon has done such an amazing job to build over the last 25 plus years, I think that sets up for really exciting things going forward for Lorcana in the future. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed today's content, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate the interaction that I've been getting from you all. Huge shout out to Just Me, who actually was the one who helped inspire this concept and this idea for this video. I really appreciate you, my friend. Anybody else, if you do have an idea of something you'd like me to riff about or do a comparison video or breakdown video, please just let me know in the comments if you have an idea for that, because at the end of the day, I do see us as just all one community, and whatever you all want as a community, I want to be able to help bring that, right? I want to be able to help share that when it comes to Lorcana and what we see for Lorcana going forward as a community. So with that being said, guys, thanks all, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace out.